Hi, I'm Tom Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. Now, some people may not know all the ins and outs of the Clean Elections Commission, but it's a 5-member body that oversees the clean election system, including campaign finance enforcement and voter education. And it's made up of 5 members who are picked by different political parties and can only be from certain political parties, and then have in addition, geographic limitations. So here today to talk to us about his view and vision for the Clean Elections Commission is our current chairman, Mark Kimble. You had a long and storied career both in journalism and as a communications advisor. Do those pique your interest in taking on a role like working with the Clean Elections Commission?
Well, I worked for the Tucson Citizen, the afternoon newspaper in Tucson, for 35 years. After that, I worked for Congresswoman Giffords and Congressman Barber as a communications advisor and as communications director for both of them. And in all of those jobs, and also on the Clean Elections Commission, I'm very interested in trying to inform people about the political process, about how they can take part in the political process. And I see my service on the commission as an extension of my previous work.
Talk to me a little bit about why that voter education is important.
Sure. Well, I think when people think of the Clean Elections Commission, most of them think about public financing for candidates who wish to take part in it. But an equally important part in many ways is the voter education work that the commission does and the commission staff does. And there's been a particular focus in last year and this year and going forward on getting more young people registered to vote, but then also to actually vote. Yeah. I think we've got to get the next generation of voters acclimated to going to the polls on election day or voting early or taking part in the political process. Yeah. And I think that's something the commission must be focused on.
Sitting on the commission as an independent member, what vantage point does that give you in evaluating, what kind of voter education programs we should do, what kind of challenges independent voters face?
Well, the commission has done quite a bit of research about who independent voters are and what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them. And independents don't vote. They don't vote in the numbers that they should. Yeah. Some of that is because they're just not that connected to the political process as someone who's affiliated with a party. Some of that is just confusion. They don't understand they can vote in a primary. Sure. They don't understand that they have to pick a Democrat or a Republican or possibly a Libertarian ballot to vote. That's kind of a complex process that we have to continue informing independent voters about. Sure. So I think it's important to get independents, which represent almost a third of voters in Arizona, more involved in the political process, even though they don't seem to really be headed in that direction.
One of the things that we also do is we do some campaign finance enforcement, both with candidates who choose to run clean, which is another way of saying without special interest money. And then we also have some authority over independent expenditures, which are those sort of sinister ads that come on that say such and such is a bad person. How important do you think it is that voters have more information about who's actually trying to get their vote?
Well, I think we all know that money is the grease that makes the political engine run. And for voters to be truly informed, I think they need to know who is behind the information they are receiving. Is it someone who has an axe to grind, who has a financial incentive in this? If you get a mailer and it says, from Arizonans for Good Stuff, who is that? What does that mean? Yeah. Who gave them money? Right. What is their aim in influencing this candidate or this issue? Sure. There's a whole lot more I would like to do to make that information more transparent, but we're limited somewhat in what we're allowed to do. Yeah. But that I think is a real concern about where the money that goes into politics comes from.
You also teach a class to folks who are applying for and then receiving citizenship. U.S. citizenship. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you got into that and why that's important, because that seems right in line with the voter education program that we're working on here.
When I worked with Congresswoman Giffords, I went to a number of ceremonies where people became American citizens. And they're very moving ceremonies where people have worked tremendously hard to join our country. And I wanted to be a part of that when I retired. So to become an American, you have to pass a civics test, which I would venture to guess most people who were born here could not pass. So I help educate people from other countries who want to become citizens about the history of our country, about how the government works, about who represents them in Congress and in the legislature. And those people are so committed to becoming Americans and to becoming part of this country and involved in our political process that they are definitely going to be lifelong voters. So
you're about 5 months into your term as chairman, so maybe sort of halfway. Did you set out with any particular goals, or do you have any particular measure, that you would like to, after your chairmanship, be able to say, well, that was a good thing that we did, and I'm happy we did that?
So this year, mostly what we're going to be focused on is preparing for next year, which is a very big year. We elect a president or re-elect a president. We will elect a member of the Senate from Arizona. We will elect all of our congressmen, congresswomen again.
And all of our legislators.
And all of our legislators. So this is a huge election next year, and it's not at all too early to start preparing for it and educating people about it.
Okay, so look forward to more of that from the Clean Elections Commission. I want to thank Chairman Kimble for taking the time to talk with us today about his vision for the commission, and we look forward to talking to you all again soon.